My experts are here. And the reason that they are here, I wanted to ask them a question about ADD.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
as you know, I've been counseling for the last 30 years, right?
I can
Which
tell.
it'll be 30 years in February. And I counsel with men and women around the world. And most, not all, but most of them were put on medication while in school
Yeah.
for something called ADD, right?
Yeah.
And then when they grow up to leave home, the mother's still trying to control them to make them stay home because her fear is they can't make it. And I'm wondering why, what is ADD, what is the medication for, and why is it happening at such a young age in life? A lot of these men grow and women grow up addicted to drugs, and they've been set up in the home. And I'm not making this up. Most of the time, it's encouraged by the mothers. The teachers tell the mothers that the kids need it, and she's okay with it because women live in fear, right? They allow, and the father doesn't stop it.
They tried to diagnose me with that when I was a kid, ADD and OCD.
And why? What's OCD?
OCD is like obsessive compulsive disorder where you gotta like do things like obsessively.
And what? Why would they diagnose that as something wrong?
Well, it was something that I would do when I was younger that was abnormal.
What do you do? Pee on yourself in bed?
No, like I would obsess over things. Like I would like get into things, or like for example, I had this like say for example, if I touch a doorknob when I was younger, I had to touch it like 7 times before I leave the room.
But that came from the anger of your mother.
Right. That
or
was
father.
right. That was a real issue. The issue was I had other issues like anger or whatever, but they called it OCD and ADD.
And did they give you medication for it?
They tried to, but I played sports, and my mom was like, no, because he plays sports to slow him down.
Thank God.
No, thank the Lord.
Otherwise, you'd be walking around in a coma today.
No.
Is she a nurse?
She did one thing right.
And when I know so many people I worked with over the years who they received that stuff in school when they were little kids, and now they're drug addicts, they're out of their mind, they don't think clearly at all now, and it's a real mess. And it's the mother that's putting them on it when they hear from the teachers that they need it. But if they just left them alone, because there's never been a time when young kids don't have a lot of energy. It's just that the world is insane, it's evil, and the parents are trusting the world, and they can't handle anything, so they're letting them destroy their own children.
I mean, I think it's a laziness. It comes from a fear, a laziness. It's something I was talking to somebody a while ago, and he was like in the medical field, and he was telling me something. He was an older guy. He was telling me something interesting about ADD, and the fact that you bring up ADD made me think of this. And he was saying that ADD never used to be something that doctors said about other children.
Right.
They used to just say that it was bad parenting.
Yes. That's right.
Isn't that interesting?
I totally remember that.
Doctors
it was
never
bad
used to-
parenting.
It wasn't. They wouldn't say that your kid has ADD. They would tell them. They would look to the parent.
They
and be
would
like,
say
no,
the
you're a bad
mother's
parent."
out of control. You're not guiding your kids in the right way. You're letting your kids be bad. Blah blah blah. Amazing.
Oh, that was
Good point, man.
Just to go, what's crazy is, speaking of that, what's crazy is that what a lot of parents think, or a lot of people think, is that just because you have, your issues, like say if you're a kid who can't focus in the class, parents and people think that their issues is who they are. So they're like, oh, well, he's just like that. He can't focus. So
Right.
let's give him something to.
They don't say
That's
he's
just him. Yeah.
They don't say he's angry at mama.
They don't
Right.
even believe that he can get over it.
Right. They just think that, oh, that's just him. That's his personality.
This is why you can't be listening to the so-called experts. Just because they have a piece of paper, they're dumb as a doorknob. Oh, and did you go through this, James?
I remember it starting to come to people's consciousness or awareness as I grew up. Because when I was a little kid, I had my mother did this Jesus Club thing.
Right.
There was there was only a few white kids in my class. And one of the white boys was, he came to the thing one time, the Jesus Club, And then he like ran away into the other room. And I think though what he said was he had ADD. So that was his excuse not to stay in the meeting or whatever with us. Because he had ADD. And he had like a single mother.
He faked it.
I don't know.
You say he faked it or
That was his excuse not to stay in the meeting with us.
Oh, I got ADD. I don't blame him. And so, what kind of mother, rather than saying to the teacher, you know what, my kid is acting this way because I'm driving him nuts or her nuts, they're angry at me, I need to change the way I act with them and treat them. What type of mother that would, okay, give them the drug and make them a drug addict, rather than telling the truth and make them free?
A desperate one.
Yeah.
You have this usually these mothers are like desperate, and they're like, because they're living with the kid, right? And this kid is usually because of a product of the parents, is usually a nightmare in the home. And so she's dealing with it and desperate as she can.
But she's creating a nightmare.
100%. And so she sends him to school, and you have all these, oh wow, like professional looking people telling you this is your problem. And she's like, wow, finally the answer to my nightmare of a kid, which you created,
Right.
is this pill, but it's not.
It's not the kids that's the nightmare, it's the mother that's the nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you listen to anyone to tell you to put your kids on drugs?
And it's mostly boys, right?
Yeah.
I never heard of a
It's
girl
mostly
having
boys.
Yeah.
They hate boys and men because they're the image of God.
I actually don't personally know any girls that have been on it. I don't personally know any. Actually, now I think about
I know one lady, and I was surprised she was on it. She was an old woman. I guess she's still living. She is an old woman. I was surprised when she told me she was on that stuff.
like
Yeah.
on even at that age.
Yeah, at that age.
Maybe she just likes amphetamines.
And she know the Bible like not going no.
Oh, of course.
But she on that medication. I mentioned a story where I know someone who the school had suggested that they put his daughter on that medication. And his wife was agreeing to do it, but the father stepped in and said, no, we're not doing this. Not
Nice.
going to happen. And we'll just pay more attention to her. We'll help her with her lessons. And now she's a doctor.
Nice.
He didn't
Nowadays,
put it on.
Nowadays, they would take the child away from the father for
Wow. Yeah.
abuse or whatever.
That's like abuse, right?
I was counseling with a man I never will forget, a grown adult man, and he was supposed to be autistic or something, one of these things they say he had. And they had been giving him medication all his life. And the parents, he has a father and a mother, and they were convinced that that was wrong with him. And so they told him while growing up that's what it was. So he grew up believing that about himself. And so he's acting that way because that's his belief. And so when I started counseling with him, I realized, you know what, this man can get over this. It's not real what he's thinking.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, you know, you really don't have the kind of problem they think you have. That's what my parents say. I said, no. He said, but my parents would disagree with you. A grown adult man. And so I said, okay, let's get the parents on the phone. And so we got the parents on the phone. And the parents said, oh, no, that's what's wrong. I'm like, but it's not. He can overcome this. But the parents believe it. And when the parents said on the phone that that's what's wrong, and I just stopped counseling with him.
Wow.
Because
It
I
just
knew I
enables
couldn't
him.
help him. Because they were disabling, right?
They're enabling him.
Enabling
yeah,
him.
it is disabling him, really.
Yeah.
But they're encouraging him to just fall back on that excuse and just not even try.
And I know for a fact that if they didn't do that, he would be fine.
Dang.
He would, but he was convinced as a child
Yeah.
by the schools, by the doctors, by his own parents that he had that issue, and he just believed it. And you become like what you believe.
Yeah.
I've had.
Well,
So
it's
is a
set
man
up.
thinking, so as he is.
You know, somebody
So I
asked,
just stopped counseling. Okay, counseling's done.
Yeah.
What can you do? I've had autists describe their autism, and I'm just like, oh, I'm autistic. You know what I mean? But I don't live like I have autism,
Right,
so
right,
it
right.
doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
Maybe I should.
Maybe I should too. And so my biblical question last week was, when should a father and a mother, stop parenting? At what age should a father and mother stop parenting their children? Right? Number one, it was really good feedback about that. Number one is that parents should be perfect examples for their children, right? Perfect examples. Live right, do right, And when the kids have questions about life, because kids would naturally ask about things, you would be able to be honest with them, answer them. And so when they grow up, teach them to work, let them work. Don't spoil your children. Don't spoil them. And so when they leave home, most of the time at 18, well, not nowadays, but in the good old days, it was 18 years old, right? You considered to be out of school, an adult. You can go out on your own. So when they leave home, they don't need any more mama or daddy. Even though fathers don't normally hijack their adult children, right? They let them be. Leave that boy alone. Leave that girl alone. Let her go and have her life, is what the father would say. But so when the kid, if you raise them right, meaning that teach them to work, don't spoil them, be a good example for them. When they leave home at 18, and don't let them be afraid to speak up to you. Let them have that freedom, not cursing and carrying on, right? But let them have the freedom to be themselves while growing up without the mother intimidating them with her emotions, trying to control them. When they become an adult, they are not afraid of the world. They are not afraid of anybody. And so when they leave home at 18, you don't have to follow their mama. When they do visits or invite you over, the adult kids don't have to act as though they're still children. So I say 18, but you got to raise them in the right way. And a lot of parents say, well, I do it because I don't want them to make the same mistakes I made, right? Who are you to stop the growth of other human beings by making sure they don't make mistakes? You made mistakes. Mistakes are there to awaken you so you can see clearer, so you can grow, so you can be independent. You don't have a right to get in the way of that. You don't see God standing in the way of human beings, and he created all, making mistakes. And the mama loved to play God, right? She doesn't want you to make mistakes. Playing God, stopping your growth, causes you to be subject to her. At 18, you don't have any business following your adult children around. Let them make mistakes. You didn't teach them the right way to go, so they got to make mistakes. Don't build an environment right around you, and in the center is you, and you're God. That's not good. And it's happening so much now, it's crazy. Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the JLP Peterson radio show, folks. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.